Today, I'd like to share a mindset shift that can really help you advance your English ability. Let's go back to basics. Let's admit it, being a beginner can be intimidating. When I first started learning what are now some of my favorite activities like yoga, salsa dancing, and photography, I made sure to enroll in programs that were labeled for beginners. In fact, they were for absolute beginners, people who had zero previous experience. To be honest, I was frustrated when I learned that some of my classmates weren't complete beginners because that meant they were already better than the rest of us. Better than me. I didn't appreciate being a beginner then, but I do now. Let's talk about why. When it comes to learning another language, we often can't wait to move beyond the beginner level. Finally, graduating into pre-intermediate seems like such a relief. It feels like that elusive goal of one day becoming fluent in the language suddenly seems possible. But here's the thing that happens when you start becoming an advanced English learner. You start feeling like an expert. I can't tell you the number of times a student has said to me, I already know that, when I'm trying to explain a nuance of the language that they just didn't use correctly. Here's the problem with being an expert. When you think you already know something, your mind is closed to going further and deepening your understanding. That's why I want to encourage you to embrace beginner's mind. In Buddhism, beginner's mind is when you study a subject with an open mind. Beginner's mind is when you approach learning with an attitude of curiosity, eagerness, and possibility. When you learn with beginner's mind, you start noticing things you didn't see before. You bring a fun, childlike attitude to experimenting with new skills. You are willing to examine what you know and what you don't know. You gain new insights because you're open to growth. Today, I want to encourage you to approach familiar subjects with beginner's mind. Going back to basics can transform how you sound. Let me give you an example. I recently started working with a new client who's a college professor. He's been living and working in English for 20 years. So it would be very easy for him to say, I already know that when I suggest working on stress patterns and familiar words used in professional settings. But instead, he said, no, let's go back to the beginning. Let's go back to basics. Because he realized that what he needs to do is go back to the beginning in order to unlearn bad habits that his mouth has picked up from years of pronouncing words wrong in order to transform his habits into good ones. Each week he says something like, I never noticed that before, when I tell him something that his mouth is doing that just isn't sounding natural. Like I said, this curiosity is enabling him to transform his bad habits into good ones, and he's already starting to sound more like a native English speaker. Beyond pronunciation, beginner's mind can transform how you speak about familiar concepts. I want to encourage you to go back to basics and start examining your everyday habits and routines. Can you describe the process with which you make tea, cook your favorite meal, style your hair, commute to work, or do any number of things that you do on a daily basis? Chances are you need to revisit the language that you use to describe these activities because we often don't talk about the activities, we just do them. Even fluent English speakers struggle to describe these activities, but when you go to the doctor or massage therapist, if you're trying to explain how you got an injury, it's often very difficult to describe the process of what you were doing when you were exercising, because we don't talk about this vocabulary, we just do these things. You don't actually need to know the precise word for the action. You just need to be able to describe it in order to tell the person what it is that you need them to do. Challenge yourself to learn the new vocabulary for these processes without referring to Google Translate, and you'll notice that your brain will start opening up new pathways to help you describe these concepts. This technique can also help you identify any knowledge gaps in your professional and academic vocabulary. Sometimes when we admit what we don't know, we end up learning a whole lot more. I hope this tip was helpful for you. Please leave me a comment below letting me know what you're going to approach with beginner's mind. Once again, I'm Kim from EnglishWithKim.com. I am your guide to the essential conversation skills you need to sound more natural in English. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with a friend. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Have a good one. Goodbye.